Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Whether you're joining us live or watching the recording, we're glad you're here. For those of you who have not yet had the opportunity to meet, I'm Anna Henry, the director of Winnetka Public School Nursery. WPSN is a nonprofit preschool based on the North Shore. We've been proudly educating and supporting young children and their families since 1927. We're a community of dedicated teachers and families committed to a progressive, Reggio-inspired approach to teaching and learning. At WPSN, we believe that each child is unique, competent, and full of potential for learning, developing relationships, creating and imagining. This image of the child is reflected in all the choices that we make regarding children, their families, our school and classroom environment, and our curriculum. Relationships are at the heart of all that we do at WPSN. We know that from birth, children's learning and development is intrinsically linked to the relationships and interactions that they have with others. Learning takes place within a complex framework of interconnections. Parents, family, teachers, peers, and community all influence and shape the way a child grows and develops. But it all starts with you, your child's first teacher. Really pleased to have WPSN's early childhood mental health specialist, Molly Pope, here with us this evening. In her work at our school, she supports teachers and our families in understanding typical development, addressing challenging behaviors, and promoting environments that foster healthy development and relationships by focusing on problem solving and capacity building. As both an educator and the parent of 3 children of my own, I'm looking forward to learning from Molly this evening as she shares more about how we can support and parent our children with big emotions and big behaviors. Without further ado, I'll hand you over to Molly. Looking forward to hearing all that she has to share with us tonight.
Thanks, Anna. I'm just noticing as I'm sitting here, I'm waiting on some hot tea from my 11-year-old to help the frog in my throat. So that'll get delivered in a second, but let me share my screen so we can get started. Okay, so we're gonna get to the start of this. Thank you everybody for being patient and logging on. Okay. All right. All right, welcome everybody. So I'm really glad to be here with you all. Love the introduction from our director, Anna Henry at Winnetka Public School Nursery. I hold a role there, as she said, as their mental health specialist. And then I'm also a consultant for other schools. And I think some of those schools are on here tonight. I think Green Bay parents might be here, so welcome. And lots of other schools around the area. I'm so happy that you got the message to come tonight. And I hope that you learned something to take away and apply tomorrow morning. So we're going to be talking about big emotions, big behaviors, and really, I'm going to take you through what was life-changing for me as a parent and as a professional. Maybe it was life-changing as a professional. It was life-saving as a parent. But understanding the brain, learning about self-regulation, and connecting with your kids in those moments. Thank you. Special delivery in the big Transformers mug. Okay, all right. So like I said, I am an infant and early childhood mental health consultant. I was trained as a school psychologist, and I've worked in early childhood settings and elementary schools for the past 15 years. And when I work with preschools now, I'm really working to support children and families and teachers through a relationship lens. I'm also a parent coach, and I work one-on-one with parents and problem solving with parents about what's happening in their home so that they can manage the challenges in their family with confidence, ease, and grace. I'm also a mom of 2 boys. We had a snow day today. It's February 2nd. It's also Happy New Year. I'm just pointing out I'm wearing my tiger shirt because it is the year of the tiger. So if you celebrated, I hope you had a wonderful feast. So I'm going to take me back to a little bit of my parenting history. That picture on the left, there I am in the pink, and I have a 17-month-old and a 4.5-year-old in that picture. You'll notice I am smiling through the pain of that moment. My 17-month-old is upset because I had put the hat on him for that picture, and he did not want the hat. My 4.5-year-old is watching his friends who are coming up the walk ready to trick or treat. He's not invested in my family photo either. And when I look back on this was really before I had my life-changing learning happen. I was really, really working hard to do parenting right, because I really felt like there was a right and a wrong. And as, you know, a child development expert, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And the secret behind this picture is I was a really big yeller. I still yell. I yell less, but I struggled. And so that's why this information tonight was really meaningful to me, because it, more than give me things to say, it informed me how to be with my kids. So just a little precursor of what's coming. There is, just a couple months ago at our most recent Halloween, my boys are 11 and 14 in this picture. I just want to say the picture on the left, I did not make the shark costume, but I made the other costumes, homemade costumes, put a lot of pressure on myself. Picture on the right, those costumes are courtesy of Amazon Prime. I got smarter. Okay, so, and there's my sweet little boy's face. And just know, he is the same boy that just delivered me my hot tea. So, you know, they evolve and grow and change. But here's our plan for this evening. We're going to talk about understanding upset through the brain, our brain, what's happening in ours, and what's happening in theirs. We're going to talk about triggers and knowing what pushes your buttons so that you can be aware and set yourself up for more success and less having your buttons pushed. I'm going to talk about behavior and really invite you to look at behavior differently, you know, rather than behavior being mean or naughty or misbehavior. Is there another way that we can understand what's happening in our kids? Going to talk about bringing the calm and bringing the connection. And then at the end, we have some questions that people submitted when they registered. And so I want to make sure to make time for that. So that's the plan. And I am a surfer. I started surfing at the ripe old age of 37. So I can't even do what this person is doing, a duck dive. So I'm not that skilled a surfer, but it was just a symbol to say that we're going to go under the behavior, right? All the waves are crashing, and we really want to go under to understand and to learn what we can about what's happening for our kids. So like I said, we're not just talking about their brain, we're talking about our brain. So here you are looking at a nice graphic of the brain. This comes from Conscious Discipline, which is the work of Dr. Becky Bailey. And this work is really meant for teachers and how to work with kids in classrooms and to really think about kind of basic brain science and how that shows up in your classroom and how to get your kids ready to learn. And she talks about there being 3 brain, body, mind states, right? Because our brain is the organ. It is connected to our nervous system, which drives a lot of our behavior. And then the brain is our mind. It's where our thoughts are held. So in these 3 states, there's something happening in each of those areas. And knowing about the brain can help us move from judgment. What does he think he's doing? That's a judgment. To acceptance. This is what's happening in my life right now. I have a toddler laying on the floor, kicking and screaming, right? A little more acceptance of what is. And sometimes we need to have some less self-judgment. I can't believe I can't handle this. I yelled again. To having some more self-acceptance. So we're going to start at the bottom. This is the brainstem. We know it by lots of names, right? There's lots of people talking about the brain, thank goodness. And the brainstem, maybe you know it as the lizard brain, caveman brain. But when we are in this part of our brain, we are really in our survival state. It is our fight, flight, or freeze state. And the essential question that we're asking unconsciously is, am I safe? Am I safe in this situation? So when we're here, it is unconscious. We're at a nonverbal state, and we're automatic, right? Have you ever been hit in the face by your kid? Do you immediately almost want to hit them back? Like it's just an automatic, how do I keep myself safe? There can be environmental triggers, right? If you're someone with loud noises, that can send you into a fight or flight state. Our childhood experiences, our genetic past, those also shape what sends us into that fight or flight. When our kids are in the fight or flight state, the behaviors that you might see are those really physical behaviors, the hitting, kicking, biting, pushing. The tantrums have screaming. Sometimes we have kids who headbang. You could also see withdrawal, running away, hiding, and shutting down. So the survival state is really helpful, right? It's what keeps us safe in the world. But it's not helpful if we go there when a child spills the milk and we yell, we yank his arm, and we're all of a sudden in that really elevated state. So we need to figure out, how are we going to access our calm when we're in this state so that we can help them access their calm. And I will just say, like, talking about these behaviors, tantrums are a typical and developmentally normal part of toddlerhood. They peak between the ages of 18 and 36 months. So if you have your child like, oh my gosh, he's going into his fight or flight state all the time, it's normal. It's normal. So as we go and we move up the ladder, we're into the emotional state. And the essential question that's happening is, am I loved? And I like to think of it as, am I lovable? Even when I'm at my worst, am I lovable? This is a question, unconscious, that's happening for us as adults. It's happening for children as well. So the things that you might be seeing, it's that negative self-talk, some false messaging, like, oh, well, I guess she doesn't like me if she didn't say hi. So, well, is that actually true? Right? You're not totally being objective when you're in this state of mind. Lots of judging. So the behaviors that you might see in your kid would be that verbal whining. I hate you. He got more. He made me do it. Clinginess, attention seeking, some relationship resistance. No, I don't want, no. Name calling, perfectionism. Oh, I'm not done. I need to do it again, right? That's when someone's in their emotional state. You have to realize it's an upgrade from being in that survival state, right? So we can go from physical aggression and defensiveness to verbal aggression and defensiveness. But it is when our buttons get pushed, this is typically where we go. And we make others responsible for our upset. Oh, he's driving me crazy. Is he? So if anyone knows Brene Brown, the sociologist and social worker who's a researcher out of Texas, she calls these your stories. So what story are you making up in your head right now? And I will say, you probably, if you're anything like me, you have already been in your emotional state at least once today, right? Maybe someone cut you off while you were driving. Maybe there was something that, you didn't get enough appreciation around something you did today. You felt a little resentful. So what needs to happen when we are in these moments is we need to find connection. So I do want to say here, as we're in this talking about triggers and that kind of verbal aggression, whatever parenting you received as a child, we often enact those behaviors when we're in this state. So if you've ever said, well, I'll never do what my mom did, I'll never do what my dad did, it's too late because you've probably already done it. All the one-liners that we kind of whip off, like, don't make me pull this car over, close the door, we don't live in a barn, I'm not your maid, you get what you get, you don't get upset. Like, that's how we kind of divvy out when we're upset. That's kind of where we are. That's how we parent. And it's not our highest functioning state. It's not where we're at our best state to problem solve with our kid. So let's go there. Let's see what that's about. This is our executive state. And when we're here, we're able to really ask and answer the question, what can I learn? So we can make choices. You're in that zone of being integrated, relaxed alertness. Really, this is the learning zone, right? Where we want kids to be. But that inner voice, that CEO of the brain, like, what will happen if I should probably leave a little bit early because there's more snow on the ground and the plows haven't come through. That kind of planning and thinking, those are our executive functioning skills. Children don't have an inner voice like that, they say, until age 7. So we need to be that executive functioning kind of problem solving for them. So executive functioning skills, it's not just planning and problem solving, it's also focused attention, impulse control, flexibility, empathy, emotional regulation, right? Those skills can only be accessed when we are in this calm, integrated state. So we loan our problem-solving prefrontal lobes to our children. And we do that by really prompting them. How can I help? I'm just here to help. I wonder what you need. So again, if we're in that emotional state that we were before, that's when we need some connection. Here, the need is some problem solving. How can we make sure the next time this happens, we have a plan? We know what to do. Okay, so that's a lot. That was kind of my neuroscience for the night, but hold that in mind because it is going to kind of keep coming up as we go through the next few slides, especially around triggers. And we say this in our house a lot, is worry about yourself. So you want to worry about yourself, the parent, before we start thinking, how are we problem solving? How are we fixing those kids, right? So this is really helpful for me to just remember that there's not one thing driving the bus. Our feelings, our thoughts, and our behavior, see how the arrows are going both ways? They're really informing and interacting with each other. So it's snowy out there, right? It's a little bit slippery. So if I'm frustrated that someone, blew through a stop sign, I could be having thoughts about them. Oh, what an idiot. They're not driving safe enough. Don't they see it's not plowed? I might not have been able to stop in time. I might have some feelings. I might be a little panicked or afraid, like, oh my gosh, I almost could have hit that guy if I hadn't stopped in time. Well, and then it's my behavior. Well, I'm going to drive extra careful, or I'm going to drive fast. I'm going to catch up with him. I'm so mad about it, right? Those things are happening super quick and they're all interrelated. So when we're thinking about when we go into those different brain states, the first place I always go for myself and in my family for my kids is I think about the acronym HALT, right? If you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, or in our house, like we say, or if you have to go to the bathroom, then you really are not in a place where you're problem solving with your prefrontal cortex. So I know that if my kid's hungry, we're not going to add on another errand in the car until I get him some food, because he's not going to be able to tolerate. His window of tolerance is going to have shrunk down real small. So what I ask him to do with me and how I want him to be on board with what I'm suggesting, I got to make sure that these things are taken care of first. These are physiological needs. There's some emotional needs there too, but these will shut down whatever plan we had in mind. And it works, it's the same with us. Another thing for us that we need to be aware of is when we hit sensory overwhelm. So we often hear about sensory needs of kids, right? They're all our 5, 6 different senses, and how kids can be super sensitive. They, like one thing, they don't like another. Well, we're the same way. Weighted blankets, they sell them at Target. That's a sensory need that for a lot of people feels really comforting. But some of the ways that we can hit our sensory overwhelm as parents are listed here, right? So we can feel touched out. No, I don't want a million kids on me right now while I'm watching the show. You can sit next to me. Thank you. Visual clutter in our homes, right? That can just lead us to be feeling overwhelmed, ineffective, loud noise, bright lights, feeling claustrophobic, a little cabin fever, pandemic, being too cold, too hot, and bad smells. I just saw a funny TikTok of a 6-year-old girl complaining that her whole house smelled like tuna fish. She was in a bad mood about it. It happens, right? So in addition to those physiological needs that we have, that Halt kind of identifies, those sensory needs that we have, there's something else happening for us under the surface. And this comes from a program called Circle of Security, and the men that started this up in the Northwest are brilliant, brilliant souls, and they named it shark music. And it's an analogy for when we see a threat in a non-threatening situation. So these come from the lessons that we learned in our own childhood, growing up with our parents or our caregivers in our homes. So it comes up when your kid behaves in a way that was unacceptable in your home as a kid. So it's the unspoken rules of your home that you weren't told, but you knew exactly, what the rules were. So it might not have been okay in your house for kids to show anger. And only adults could be angry. Kids, sent to their room. No one could talk back to the adults. So now you're an adult and you might not have developed, the best healthy ways to cope with your own anger or how to manage someone else's anger when it's coming at you. And now you have kids and you see kids get big and angry. And so that can trigger your shark music and a little bit of panic, like this is not safe, this is not okay, because of what your experiences were as a child. So rather than being empathetic and patient, holding a boundary with your child when he's showing anger, you might walk away, ignore, or explode back and be bigger. And those are automatic triggers. They're happening without you knowing. So that's why I bring this up, because this shark music, we all have them and they're tied to our childhood. And they can also be triggers of what sets us off, what we find intolerable. And the thing is, we have shark music and then our partner also has shark music. They grew up in a different house. So you never know, right? There's lots of reasons why adults in the house could be feeling short-tempered and impatient. So another thing that we need to talk about is parent stress. We experience stress as parents, we experience stress as adults, as workers in the world, and the buildup of unaddressed stress can lead us to lose our cool, lash out, and not show up as the parents that we want to be. And it can come from all sorts of sources, right? The constant interruptions, trying to work from home, lack of sleep, your child's developmental age, right? Maybe you have a child in that 18 to 36 month peak of tantruming, sibling fights, lack of appreciation, your work demands. You don't have time for some self-care. And by self-care, I just mean simply having some time to yourself or saying no to commitments that are overwhelming you. The weather, changes in routine, poor boundaries, right? All of these things can add to the stress. and make our window of tolerance much smaller. Right? Maybe we relate to this. Our patience just isn't there. I was so patient before I had kids, and then I don't know what happened. So this was something I have been thinking about and returning to. I read it in the fall in October. You can think back, life felt so much freer then. We didn't have buckets of snow on the ground, and it felt like maybe the pandemic was shifting, but it was still around. And so this author coins it slow motion trauma. She says part of it is ambiguous grief, and part of it is slow motion trauma, and part of it is enduring exhaustion. And part of it too is the enduring disorientation of a pandemic that will not end. So sometimes we can't put our finger on what it is that is making us feel a little more vulnerable, a little more quick to flip our lids and to go into that emotional state. And we have to give credit and credence to the pandemic and this length and the unknowing of it. There's stressors, obviously, that it causes, but just that unknown and the anxiety that's kind of bubbling under the surface has just been one more challenge that we've had to negotiate as parents. So I just said it. I said, flip your lid. What did I mean? This is from Dan Siegel. He is a neuropsychiatrist and a parenting expert. And there is his book there on the side. It's the book that I recommend to parents all the time called The Whole Brain Child. And I made this for my Instagram. You can see that's my hand. And it's truly something that you can teach your kids, as they get to be 5, 6 years old, to talk about their brains as a way to understand that this is a normal part of being a human being, is that you're emotional. And so you are going to have to learn, how are you going to manage these emotions? But so he talks about, you have your lid. This is that green, that executive state, that prefrontal cortex that we talked about from conscious discipline. Here would be your emotional state. And here would be your survival state, fight or flight. So, right, when you flip your lid, you act on instinct, you say those one-liners, you're not at your best. When that executive state, that upstairs brain, can come back online, he calls it the wise leader, but it helps us calm, and it really helps us be available to our kids. He also says my favorite phrase, which is, you gotta name it to tame it. So part of coming out of that emotional state is knowing what emotion is flooding your body. One that we talk about, I've said it a few times already tonight, is anger. But anger is one of those iceberg emotions. And typically with anger, there's some other emotions, more nuanced emotions, that are just under the surface. And I'm talking about hurt, embarrassment, resentment, fear, loneliness, right? So we can be like, oh, I'm so angry at you, when really we mean, I'm so hurt that you weren't here. I was waiting for you to be here. And when you didn't show up, it felt like you just forgot about me. And that was really hurtful. So when we can name what we're flooded with, even if we're just naming it to ourselves to clarify what water we're swimming in, right? Because that's what's happening when we're flooded with emotion. It's like we can't see the leaves from the trees. I lost my analogy, but you're flooded. So when we can bring some awareness, some understanding, some compassion, some self-compassion, we're eventually able to problem solve. And problem solving is just, what do I need in this moment? So it can be humbling, embarrassing. It can be uncomfortable to have big feelings. But trust me, parenthood is what's going to give you lots of opportunities to practice dealing with your big feelings, because you have someone who's going to be triggering you potentially a lot. And big emotions is just part of being human. So lots of compassion for yourself. It's like, so Molly, then what do I do? So I'm stuck, I'm flooded in my feelings. And really what I wanted this slide to communicate is that your regulation, your ability to get your wise leader back online, to get your lid to come back down, it's really a two-part process. So you have your body, which is your nervous system, and how do you regulate? I just took a deep breath. I kind of let my belly relax a little bit, which I'd been holding. And then I have my brain, my mind, and that's where my inner voice lives. And that's how I'm going to talk to myself in this hard moment. So I got to use strategies for both, for my body and for my brain, so that I can be calm and ready again. And I'll just share for myself. I'm someone, like I said, I have short fuse. I was a big yeller. I continue to sometimes yell, try to make it less and less. But I grew up in a house with a parent with a short fuse. I had no coping tools coming into parenting other than I liked kids. It worked with kids. I thought that was my liking kids was going to really carry me through parenting. But for my nervous system, I needed to learn to breathe and really build in my awareness with mindfulness. So that's what I adopted in order to gain more awareness, was I started a mindfulness practice. I took a class online and I was like, I actually kind of like this. And I practice most mornings. Mornings that I don't, I feel a difference. I feel not as steady. So it's a muscle, just like any other muscle. I'm sure you've heard this before, and you got to keep it in shape to help stay more regulated more of the time. So I also needed to deal with how I speak to myself. Like I said, there I was with those homemade Halloween costumes and a big white teethy smile. I was faking it because inside I really felt like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't doing it right. I was probably messing up my kids. It's kind of embarrassing because I should have been an expert because I do this for my job. So I had a lot of negative self-talk. So I had to explore self-compassion and figure out what that meant and what that meant for me. So I just share that because in my journey, it really was figuring out strategies that was both going to calm my nervous system when I got triggered. I'm a little jumpy. I jump from loud noises. People say my house is very quiet. That's the way I like it. And also I needed to find some mind strategies. So let me share with you what I mean. So this is a good one to take a screenshot of. My lid has flipped. What can I do? So there on the left-hand side, those are strategies that are going to help your body and your nervous system. So nothing totally wacky, but you kind of forget what you need to do for yourself in the moment sometimes. Taking a deep breath, right? I'm someone who holds their belly. Some people hold their shoulders. Some people feel it in their tightness in their chest. So becoming aware of where you feel tightness when you have flipped, and that you want to kind of breathe and relax that place to tell your body, it's okay, body. There's no shark in the water. There's no danger, no threat. You're safe. Getting a drink of water, repeating a mantra, texting a friend, getting a little connection and support, counting backwards or forwards in multiples just to do something kind of grounding, stepping outside and getting a breath of fresh air, right? There's all your do strategies. On the other side are what can I say to myself to make sure I'm accessing that compassion, both for myself and for my child. She is having a hard time. This is not an emergency, right? If it's not life or death, it is not an emergency. Spilled milk, not an emergency. He needs help learning this skill, right? What I'm seeing is he doesn't know how to do this well yet. This parenting is really hard. I am doing the best that I can. and that's enough. I love my kids too much to give up now. I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I'm a horrible mom or horrible dad. He is just overwhelmed by his big feelings, right? All of these phrases are going to build some empathy and let you get out of that judgment zone and slowly start to access your calm so that you're available for your kid again. So this is a great just kind of visual with some talking points of what do you do when you need to remove yourself. This came from Instagram, Flourishing Homes and Families. They talk a lot about parenting triggers on there. So I get asked this a lot. Well, when my kid's melting down, like I'm also like at my wit's end, do I have to like stay with them? And the answer is you don't have to stay with a child who's melting down as long as they're safe and they know that where you are and that you're going to be right back. So if your child's safe, taking a break to regulate yourself is more beneficial than staying nearby and staying dysregulated. You're of no help to anyone. So maybe it looks like this. And of course, you find words that feel authentic to you. If you feel like you're reading a script, it's not going to feel real, and your kid's going to know it's not real. So find words that are meaningful and true and honest to you. You can say to your child, you're safe to cry in your room. I'm going to take some deep breaths and come back to check on you. Because sometimes you leaving them can trigger them being like, you're leaving me, right? So getting them used to, you're safe in your room. That's almost another lesson they need to learn. So it might not go that great the first time, but if they know, they can trust that you're going to come back. If you haven't abandoned them, they can, start to regulate on their own for a little bit more while you are also regulating. So this is about willingness. Are you willing to really look at behavior differently? Because behavior is communication, especially if you have people who can't talk and can't tell you what's happening, then the only thing you have is their behavior. The big mystery is, what is it telling us? So sometimes it's telling us, you're asking me to do something that I'm not developmentally ready to do. Like, I'm 2 and you're telling me you're giving me directions. I don't really follow directions. I'm a 2-year-old, right? If you want me to do something, make it fun, make it a game, and then you've got me. So what is it telling us? So this is just a way to kind of break down behavior that I'm sure you've seen in your home or someone else's home, but the child grabs another child's toy. And really common adult response is, no, it's not nice, don't grab. You know the rules, right? Well, if you're gonna grab toys, then we're leaving. And so what's really being communicated to your child is, that they are bad rather than the behavior isn't appropriate. So let's look on the other side, on the right-hand column. When a child's grabbing a toy, if we kind of look beneath it, we think, oh, yeah, they want to play with the toy. So when we say, oh, you want to play with the toy? You say, can I have a turn when you're done? And then you've taught, right, the skill that they don't have. It's not going to take 1 time. It's not going to take 2 times. It's probably going to take 25 to 30 times, but they're going to learn that script. This is what I do when this happens. And my parents are here to remind me. And you're understanding that that behavior is really their way of asking. They just haven't learned how to do that yet. So your perception and how you see the behavior really matters, right? Sometimes I see this as a duck. Sometimes I see this as a rabbit. It all depends on what state my brain is in, probably. We want to see misbehavior differently. Again, maybe this has happened to you. Your child throws a fit in a grocery store. So if you're in a judgment place in your mind, you're thinking, oh, This indulged child won't listen to her mother. Or is she missing the ability to handle frustration? Is there some halt going on? A child that doesn't follow directions when they're told. Is this a non-compliant child who manipulates their parents? Or is it a child who's missing the ability of paying attention and keeping out distractions in that moment? Right? Just a hypothesis. We don't know, but we're going to think a little bit deeper, right? Just like that surfer under the stuff on top to really figure out what is making this hard for him right now. A child who constantly pushes or elbows other children. Is this child just rude and disrespectful? Never got taught how to keep their hands to themselves? Or are they missing the ability, like the spatial awareness, the body awareness of how to negotiate group settings? Are they having some sensory overwhelm? Let's go back to like the toddler tantrums, the little gal at the grocery store. What if they throw a tantrum when they don't get something that they want? Are they doing it to be manipulative? The answer is no. It's important to remember that toddler behavior is really in service of meeting their needs. So this is your toddler being strategic in getting their needs and desires met. You always have the option to set a limit and follow through while you're supporting your child through those big emotions. Tantrums don't make a child bad, just as tantrums are not a reflection of your parenting. It's not personal. It's your child learning to navigate the world as they grow and develop. It's part of normal human development. Let's talk about hitting. This was actually a question that someone submitted, so hopefully this kind of gets at it. Hitting isn't misbehavior. It's a cue that your child needs support. So again, I love my Instagram. I get all sorts of learnings off of there. This is from the Workspace for Children. And she breaks this up so nicely that instead of saying this on the left, that's not nice. Hands are not for hitting. How do we set a boundary? And a boundary is, I will not let you hit, right? I would even add in there, I see that you're mad. I will not let you hit. And then depending on how old the child is, depends on the next steps. If the child's under 3 and is hitting, I'm going to move them on and do a little more distraction and kind of guide them into their next thing. If they're over 4, they might need you to get what they are so mad about that they hit, right? Like if they know better, why is she hitting? Then you're going to have to spend a little more time. Wow, you are really mad. I see you. And you might need to really name for them to tame whatever big feelings they're having. And you might need to, it might take some detective work. And I always say, you go with your best guess. If you kind of saw out of the corner of your eye what was brewing, take a guess and name what was happening for that kid and why they might be so frustrated that that got them to hit. Also, if they're older, they can sometimes tell you the reason that they're hitting, right? And then we can talk about, oh, you must have been so mad. Well, let's take a break until we feel a little bit better. We're going to address that mood, those feelings, before we really correct and teach, because they're not going to be ready until they're totally regulated and they're back online. So this was my mantra. It continues to be my mantra, but your child is doing the best that they can with the skills that they have in this moment. And I always think about, my kid knew how to put his shoes on. He was 4 years old. He could put his shoes on. So then why today is he on the floor saying, you do it, you do it? I'm not sure. But that's telling me that he needs a little bit more. Maybe it's one of those halt things. Maybe he's feeling unloved. Am I lovable, right? Something has triggered this. So if that skill, he's not able to access that skill because he's not in his best problem-solving integrated place, then I'm going to help him, right? And he knows that I am loved no matter what, right? I'm always lovable. Mom and dad are here to support me. So that's the other part of this. I'm going to assume positive intent. My child isn't manipulating me in a negative way, but they might be telling me, I need more of you today, Mom. I'm having a rough one. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? Okay, everything was frozen for a sec. So this is important to remember. If you, like me, have ever shouted at a child to calm down, you realize it's not possible to get someone to be more calm than you are currently in the moment. So you can't get the child to a higher inner state than the one you're in. So if you are in your emotional state, the child's going to stay in their emotional state. So the best thing you can do in that moment is just breathe. Let the chaos and the bombs explode all around you and just breathe. You got to get yourself back online so you can take your next step. Here it is in a simple ABC. If we want to access our problem solving and executive state, we have to do it through active calming. What can I do for my body and what can I think in my brain? We have to be willing to perceive our children's misbehavior as communication or a call for help. I'm doing the best I can with the skills I have. That's all I got today. And then C is we're coaching new skills as necessary. So when we see genuine connection with our child, we're being patient with one another so that we can figure it out together. Just a little quote from Drake. Started at the bottom, now we're here. So we're going to just talk about how are we regulating and what are we doing with our child in those moments. I talk about the 3 R's. I was just saying this to someone the other day. I said, do you know about the 3 R's? This is from the work of Dr. Bruce Perry. He's an expert in trauma and with children. So think about those 3 brain states that I said. We've got safety, right? That fight or flight on the bottom, the emotional side of our brain where connection is necessary, and then the executive part of our brain where we're able to problem solve. So he has listed it as 3 R's to match those 3 brain states. First, we have to regulate, then we relate, and then we can reason. Because moods are contagious. So if we're gonna go with a mood in our house, let's shoot for calm. And we're gonna get that with our regulating, starting with ourselves first. I love this picture. I'm not even really a dog person. I'm a cat person. I'm surprised my cats haven't been here. But I look at this because co-regulation is what we do with our infants, right? When we have our infant on our chest and we're breathing, and that little infant is picking up on the rhythm and the calm and is soothed by your breathing. It still impacts us, right? Have you ever heard of the 7-second hug or even the 20-second hug? When you hug your partner for that extended time, your bellies start to touch, to breathe together, right? And you start to kind of feed off their calm breath, and it calms your nervous system down, as does the squeeze of the hug, right? That's co-regulating right there. So with this picture, I just say, be the dog. That is what we're trying to do when our kid is super dysregulated and we need to help bring calm back online. Be the dog. Be calm so you can download that calm into them. Then let's move up, right? Regulate, relate. Here's what to say. That name it to tame it. I hear you're feeling bummed. I know it's hard to wait sometimes. Sometimes if we can, oh, there's my timer. Sometimes if we can hit that soon enough with a child, they don't flip over into a full tantrum. Feeling seen can make the ship change course. Wish fulfillment is huge. It's a great tool to have. You wanted to push the button. I'm thinking of the elevator when you have just one button to push, but 3 fingers want to be the pusher. I know that was frustrating. You can have a turn on the way down. You wish we could stay longer, right? Also saying you didn't want that to happen. It's just a way to name what the feeling is that's going on inside. It's really another name it to tame it, that wish fulfillment. And then I have when then, right? First then, that's another way to think about it. When you stop screeching, then I can hear your words. Wait. Oh, thank you so much. Now I can hear you, right? That we are giving this condition. As soon as you put your shoes on, we can go to the park. Let's go, let's go. Come on, it's gonna be fun. Just get those shoes on, right? So that it's a little bit more of a playful invitation to what's coming next. Often we go from relating to needing to restate the boundary that triggered that big behavior. So I love these. This is from Curious Parenting. So these are ways that you can state a boundary with your child while you're still in that connected relationship. And then the other strategy to keep in mind is redirecting the behavior. If you see the behavior in front of you, right? Someone's banging their toy on the window. Instead of stop banging on the window, I see you banging your toy on the window. I'm going to walk over. I'm going to take that toy away with my hands while my voice is saying it's not safe. The window can break. You can play with it on the floor, on the table, right? Maybe they were exploring. They like the noise of that. Let them do it someplace else where they can bang and make that noise, right? Instead of being careful with the baby, let them know what they can do. I was a teacher of 2-year-olds. I got a lot of sand dumped on my head. So what do? Well, don't throw sand doesn't really solve the problem. I can just say, oh, that sand got on my head. I don't like it. Let's get the sand in the bucket. What can they do? So, right? You're always redirecting to something positive that they can do. This takes skill. This takes a little practice. You're not always at your best to be able to have these words at the ready. That's okay. You'll get another chance to do it in 5 minutes or in an hour or the next day. But redirecting their behavior is important. So I'm coming to the end here. There's our girl, Oprah. And in her magazine, she has a section called What I Know for Sure. So this is Molly Pope's version of what I know for sure. Conflict is unavoidable and natural. It is part of the human experience. You cannot have a family, live with other people, be in your home with others without having conflict. So some acceptance around that has to happen. It's okay. The second thing I know for sure is children need to say no. They need to test boundaries and they need to lose emotional control and have someone help them get back online. It's part of their development. They have to do that in order to grow into the people that we want them to be. So I just suggest and invite you guys to forgive yourself for any of the unhelpful ways you've responded in the past. We do the best that we can with what we have. And when we know better, we can do better. So that's kind of the end. Here, you can take a screenshot of this just to go through what we talked about, from the brain to talking about triggers, to how can we look at behavior differently and see it as communication? And then how do we regulate and relate so that we can move people on from those big upsets? Anna, how'd I do on time there?
You're pretty good, 4 minutes over. Yay.
So what's next here?
So we have some questions. Molly, if you are okay, ask some of them. We've got some great questions. I'm just going to have a quick look through because I know some of them you addressed. How best to address sibling jealousy in a new baby? I know this is something that many families have challenges with when their young child gets a new sibling. I think I'm still maybe getting over that myself sometimes.
With your 3. Well, right. So this is something to learn some strategies, because it's going to be how your family's makeup for the time going forward. But I mentioned wish fulfillment, and I think wish fulfillment can be really helpful to name the strong feelings that come up when someone gets a new sibling, right? To be able to relate to them and their experience. Sometimes you wish that baby wasn't here and it was just you and me and dad. And when you're doing wish fulfillment, you're really trying to name that thing that the kid goes, yeah, like you get it. And it's okay to name those things, right? Doesn't mean it's going to happen. We're not giving the baby back, but to name what that feeling is, to not be scared of letting that feeling have some air in your home. I also think trying to really have some special time, doesn't have to be long, but to really look for times you can have 5 to 10 minutes one-on-one with that child. And then there's scarcity, right? Oh, there's not going to be enough love, enough lap space, enough food, enough toys. And so really always reinforcing this idea, we have enough. I have a big heart and enough love for all my kiddos. I'll never run out of love. So those are my 3 hot tips for that.
Awesome. So you talked a little about tantrums, and you touched on this a little bit, but how do those tantrums change between the ages of 2 and 6?
So when we have 2-year-olds, for most of the part, they have a little language, but not a lot of language. And they're on their own developmental agenda of, I do it for myself. So when you impose your ideas, you're going to have tantrums, and they're going to happen more frequently. As kids age up, they get language, they get a little more ability to regulate, and those tantrums don't happen as frequently. And when they have language, they can tell you what's upsetting them. But their emotional control and their impulse control isn't going to be so great, because their brain and their body works faster than their mouth. By the time they get even older, 4, 5, 6, they're capable of managing their upsets a little bit more. They're definitely capable of telling you why they're upset. And you're going to have a better window to problem solve with them of how can we do, something different next time so we don't have this problem again. What are some ideas? You have a much more active thinker with you at that older age.
This is a good one. How do you advise parents to handle situations when a breakdown occurs, when there's no luxury of time to stop, calm, reconnect? When I think back to being the parent of one child, I thought I had it down. I was just fabulous because we had all the time in the world. But then number 3 comes along and you've got to go here, there, and everywhere. And it can be really hard to do this.
I think you just named it, is just to accept that those are very hard moments. It's not going to be pretty. And if you have any concern of people watching you and being like, ooh, she is a terrible mom, look at her. You got to get rid of that, because anyone with any experience with children is probably looking at you saying, man, poor lady, she's having a tough day. I hope she gets home
probably
okay.
What you thought of me when you saw me sweating in the YWCA changing rooms all those years ago.
just doing her best. But I think, to know that it's perfectly okay to just, I call it a swoop and scoop, right? You're going to come in and you might have to be more hands-on and really take over that situation, whether it's getting the kid to the car, getting the kid out of the house. And my suggestion is just to be narrating what's happening. I'm going to pick you up. I'm putting you in the car. We need to go home now. That even if there's screaming and yelling happening, you're telling them. And then at the end of the day, you can process and really create a narrative with that child as to what happened. We were at the park and mommy got a phone call and we had to go, and you were really mad and you were crying when I carried you. And then when we got home, you got to watch Bluey and you loved Bluey. and that was okay. So that you have a little narrative of it actually ended up okay.
I think we have time for one more. What do you do when your child keeps blaming you? Like, no, you get it, you did it, or you hurt me, if you so much as brush up against them.
Yeah, I feel for this parent. These are ruts or like vicious cycles I feel like we can get in with our children. And my general advice is take a deep breath and start fresh tomorrow, or whatever day you feel ready to start fresh. And think of ways that you can spend some special time with this child. So what they probably need, it's like they need a love bomb to really have their bucket filled from you, and feeling really more connected with you. It's connection that brings about willingness. So think of silly, fun ways that you get goofy together. And it's really, what are the things, the voices, the songs, the, play things you do that get them giggling, whatever, hide and seek, chase, those kinds of things. And just make that your intention. I'm going to get us giggling today. And typically with enough of that, your kid becomes more willing and less touchy and antagonistic with you.
Molly, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. I'm sure everyone has come away with so many tools and ideas of how to begin again tomorrow. And I think that's one of the best things about being a parent. Every day you can wake up and you can set your intention and begin again. So
totally. That's the best way to end it, Anna.
Okay, well, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.